Lord. Good day, everyone. Okay, so for today, we will be discussing about the overview on theories in language study. So let me begin my discussion with a quote coming from Oliver Holmes, wherein he said that language is the blood of the soul into which thoughts and out of which they grow. It's a very good quote made by Oliver actually. I hope you are being inspired of his quote. Okay. Is it really important for us to study language? What do you think, guys? For me, of course, it's very important for us to study language because it helps us to communicate with other people. We study language because to understand language, of course, there are things that we have to learn, especially the human experience in studying it, studying language itself, because it empowers us to teach more effectively, communicate more persuasively, and interpret the structured world around us, which is much greater clarity if we know the language itself, because we will be dealing with different kinds of people. Okay, so for today, let's have the overview on theories in language study. Okay, wait for a while, guys. So when we look at how language works, there are major theories generally fall into how we acquire language itself, or what we call developmental linguistics, and how we use it structurally and socially. So I'll be giving you theories about this language. Okay, the first one is structuralism by Ferdinand de Saussure. Okay, according to him, as you can see here in our slide, okay, often the father of modern linguistics. Saussure shifted the focus from studying how languages change over history, diachronic, to analyzing language as a self-contained system at a specific point in time, or synchronic. According to Ferdinand, language is a structured system of signs. A sign is made up of two parts: the signifier, the sound or written word, and the signified, the mental concept, and it represents. So he mentioned here synchronic versus diachronic. Okay. Actually, Saussure argued that to truly understand how language works for its actual speakers, we must look at it synchronically, analyzing language as a complete self-contained system at a specific point in time. Meaning to say, we're talking about here the present, rather than focusing on its history. So think of it like a game, guys. Do you play chess? Okay, if you know how to play the chess, okay. So in this one, so you have to think of it a game. It's a game of chess, like a game of chess, To play or to understand the game right now, you don't need to know the 500-year history of how the night piece evolved. You just need to know the rules governing how the knight moves in relation to the other pieces on the board today. Okay, that is the concept of Ferdinand. Okay, who is Ferdinand? Okay, let me give you a little history of who is Ferdinand. Okay, actually, guys, he's a Swiss linguist, widely recognized as the modern linguistics. And as I mentioned, no, before social language study was primarily diachronic, meaning scholars track how languages change and evolved over long periods of history. So, like tracing Latin roots into modern Romance languages. So, Saussure completely flipped this approach by introducing structural linguistics. Okay. Next one, okay, let's have the graphic. Let us discuss the graphic. If you could see here, I place a graphic there. We have their signifier and so up, look at there, up of the, at the top, I mean, at the top of the slide says there is structuralism. And down below we have their signifier and signified. So what is the meaning of this graphic? So the graphic here, the lower right, perfectly captures Saussure's most famous concept, no? The linguistic sign. He argued that language is not just a list of words or pre-existing things, but a system of signs. So every sign, guys, is a two-sided psychological entity made of two inseparable parts. So that's why he wrote there signifier and down below signified. Okay. So what's the difference between signifier and signified? So when we say signifier, guys, it has something to do with the form. So this is the physical or sensory part of the sign. The actual sound waves when spoken or the letters on a page when written in the graphics. Okay, that's why we have their example. The letters tree make up the signifier. And then down below we have there the signified. Mean to say there, the signified here stands for the concept. So this is the mental idea or psychological concept that pops into your head when you encounter the signifier. So in this graphic, guys, it is represented by the mental image of a leafy green tree. You look at the picture. Okay, so that's the explanation of the graphic that I have posted here. Okay, and then what else do we need to know about structuralism by Ferdinand? Here, he pointed out that the link between the signifier and the signified is completely arbitrary. So there is no inherent natural, actually, or biological reason why the letters TREE or the sound tree should represent the woody plant with branches. We only understand it because society has agreed upon a collective structure set of rules. So means there are set of rules already. And proof of this is that different languages use completely different signifiers. Okay, for example, we have in in the Philippines, we have the Tagalog of the tree is puno. So, really, for the exact same signified concept. Okay, so that's the uh, explanation of the theory of Ferdinand. Next slide. Let's have another theory. Another theory is about behavioralism. Okay, let me add on. So to sum it up for the theory of Ferdinand, the graphics actually illustrate that under his theory, structuralism, individual words don't have meaning in a vacuum. So language is a carefully balanced network where words only have meaning because of their relationship, differences, and contrast with other words within the system. Okay. Next, another theory is behavioralism. Okay, by B.F. Skinner. Okay, who is Skinner? Okay, so it says there in my slide, popular. He's very popular in the mid 20th century. He is a behaviorist also, and behaviorist theory, according to him, applies general psychological learning principle to language. Uh, what else do we need to know about Skinner? He is also an influential American psychologist, guys. Beside from that, he's also an author and the leading proponent, of course, of this theory, behaviorism. Okay? He published a groundbreaking book called Verbal Behavior. In this book, guys, he argued that language is not an innate, no, unlike Chomsky. Chomsky has this kind of theory of innate knowledge, no? So for Skinner, it's different one. So he argued language is not an innate magical human faculty, but simply a vocal behavior learned the exact same way animals learn tasks through environmental conditioning. Okay, that's why you look at the definition here in this slide. Language is a behavior acquired through environmental conditioning, imitation, and habit formation. So there's an example here. A child says a word, receives positive reinforcement, for example, like a smile or a cookie, and repeats the behavior. So language learning is viewed as a process of stimulus and response. So every time that the child will say word and he received something from the environment, so it becomes a pattern. So that's the reason why uh, when somebody smile at him, when he, for example, when he says such word and somebody has smiled at him, so there's a repetition of that kind of behavior because it stimulate him. He made a response to it. So it's just like there's a positive reinforcement going on that makes the child do such thing. So this is the theory of Skinner. It's behaviorism. Okay, so let me discuss further about the theory of Skinner. Actually, he rejected the idea that children have an internal built-in grammar processor. No, unlike Chomsky, he believes this. He believes that a child has an innate knowledge. Okay, for Skinner, it's a different one, as I mentioned a while ago. So instead, he argued that a child mind is a blank slate. It's like tabula rasa. It's empty. So children listen to the sounds adults make, try to imitate those sounds, and the environment reacts to them. Over time, correct speech patterns become deeply ingrained habits. That's for Skinner. Okay. So let me discuss this further. So as I mentioned, there is that stimulus. So the stimulus response mechanism. So under behaviorism, language learning operates on a straightforward feedback loop. So there's a stimulus, then response, and you need to have that kind of reinforcement. So if you try to look at the presentation here for Skinner, okay, so at the center, we have their operant conditioning. And then we have here reinforcement could be positive reinforcement. And then we also have negative reinforcement. Since I mentioned about stimulus, so a child feels hunger or sees an object. For that, so what would be the response? Okay, since he feels hunger and then or sees an object, the child utters a sound or word. What is the sound? Could be milk. He will be asking for milk or maybe another word, maybe maba, maba, maba. No, just like making sound just to get that object or just to get milk. So what would be the reinforcement? So the reinforcement that will be coming from the environment. So a parent, of course, has to respond to it. So therefore, a parent responds by smiling, giving them cookie, or handing them, of course, the one that they like, a glass of milk. So that's behaviorism according to Skinner. And then we have here innatism or generative grammar. Okay? Okay. Do I still need to add more? Okay, I forgot to mention. Wait, let me go back to the same theory of Skinner because I've mentioned also operant conditioning. So look at the graphics here, guys. So there's a four quadrant, right? I mentioned positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement at the left side. So positive reinforcement down below, negative reinforcement. At the side of the positive reinforcement will be the negative reinforcement. At the same time, down below, negative punishment. So negative, if there's reinforcement, there is also that punishment that maybe if you will not be doing such action, so there will be a punishment. So positive reinforcement and negative punishment, then for positive reinforcement and negative punishment, and then we have positive punishment. So what is this graphic all about, guys? So there's the four quadrant diagram in the lower right corner explain the psychological engine behind the theory of Skinner. Okay, so at the center, if you try to look at it, there is that word operant conditioning. So this is a method of learning where behavior is shaped by its consequences. That's why we have, if you could not do such thing, so there will be, okay, wait for a while, I lost time. Okay, wait, I'll have to change this one. Okay, wait. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so let's go back to our discussion. So this is a method, the operant conditioning. So this is a method of learning, as I mentioned, uh, of a method of learning. Oh, what happened? I cannot open anymore. Okay, it's a method of learning according to Saucer. Okay, so next we have I'll go back later on, guys. Now I'm just charging my cell phone. So let's have another one. We have Enitism or the generative grammar by Noam Chomsky. So Chomsky completely revolutionized language study by firstly rejecting behaviorism. So it's a contradiction also. His theory contradicts with the theory of Skinner. So he argued that human language is far complex to be learned purely through imitation. So if you are observing a child, no, children really are great imitators. So they imitate the adults, okay, and they even the way they talk. Adults talk, the children imitates also, and even the action of the adult children are also imitating. So humans are born with biological predisposition for language. He possessed an innate language acquisition device and a universal grammar. So a baseline set of structure rules hardwired into human brain. So guys, this explains the poverty of the stimulus, how children can produce entirely unique sentences they have never heard before. So rather than just mimicking what is around them. So this is the theory of Chomsky. Okay. Okay. Next, let's have the theory of John Piaget, which is cognitivism. This is also in contrast to Chomsky's theory. No language is specific brain module. Cognitivists view language as just one part of a broader intellectual and cognitive development. So here he defined language as language is for him language is an outgrowth of general cognitive processing and thought. So a child must first understand a concept before they can acquire the language to describe it. So mean to say the children or children I mean should have to or a child should have to learn first the concept of it before understanding such. So here's an example. A child must understand, for example, the concept of object permanence. That things still exist when out of sight before they start using words like gun or bye-bye. Okay. So if they want to say if they, because they don't know the meaning of this, so they have to understand first the concept of it. Okay, next. Another is interactionism or sociocultural theory by Lee Vygotsky. This framework bridges the gap between biological readiness and environmental influence, emphasizing that language cannot be studied in isolation from social context. And then for him, language develops primarily through social interaction. So as you interact with people, you get to understand what really the concept of language. So he also plays here. He also have this kind of idea of zone of proximal development, no? Suggests that language is acquired when learners interact with a more knowledgeable other like a parent or teachers who provides a supportive framework scaffolding for communication. Okay, so that's it. I hope you have learned something out of the discussion. But of course, this will be discussed further in our next meeting. Each of the theories that I mentioned. I'm sorry. Okay, my cell phone stopped. Okay, so we will be discussing each of the theory that I mentioned here next time. Okay, so I'll just give you an overview of the theories, okay, in language study. So bye guys.